The Spin-off Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
As a sports fan, I have to confess. Sometimes the game gets kind of boring. That's when I unfold my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and use multi-window viewing on its large screen. Boring game? I'm checking out my fantasy baseball league at the same time. Score still 1-0? I'm replying to emails in the other window, scoring points with the boss. Semifinals finally getting exciting? I'm buying tickets to the finals and booking my flights. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
Tēnā koutou katoa, no mai haere mai. Welcome, nice to see you all here. Shall we introduce ourselves, just in case anyone's not familiar with our extensive CVs? My name is Toby Manhire. I am the editor-at-large of The Spin-off.
Kia ora koutou, ko Annabelle Lee mei the tōku ingoa, he uri o hau no Ngaitahu, no reira tēnā tātou.
Woo!
Hello, I'm Ben Thomas.
Woo!
I always introduce myself to my clients with my bona fides that I did 6 years in the John Key government, helping Chris Finlayson solve treaty matters for all time in a way that would never be reversed. And I also once advised on acts, not just their least successful, but I think anyone's least successful election result ever in 2017.
Were you being paid by some, offshore overlords to sabotage the campaign? And now is that what it is? Goddamn wokester.
I was trying to get FaceTime to start writing books for Ellen Gibbs. I was, I wanted to get into that Paul Goldsmith money,
Wow, amazing.
I think it's worth noting, in a literary festival, there aren't that many, authors in New Zealand who have swimming pools in Epsom. But if you're biographing the founders of the Business Roundtable, you can get there.
Top tip for all the authors present, just Ben will hook you up. We're going to do sort of roughly maybe in 3 parts this hour. We'll start off with all the big issues. We'll solve all the big issues.
Yeah, big rocks.
Do the big rocks, big chunks, big chunks. Then
you chunk up the big rocks at the decision gate.
Thank you.
That's where they're processed into outcomes.
We will. Then we're going to always innovating with the format. We're going to do a pub quiz of sorts. We'll see how that goes. And then we'll have some questions from you. Last time we were here 2 years ago, the questions were excellent. Were any of you here a couple of years ago when we were last? That went really well. Look at that.
Don't be shy, you're the best ones.
That was the bread and butter election. We were talking about bread and butter and about beetroot, boondoggles, bathroom bans, bureaucracy and bonfires was the theme of last time. There was also, it was a couple months before the 2023 election, and towards the end of the live podcast here, we had a sort of round, a quick fire round of predictions of what we saw in the months ahead. Te Aihe's up there. Te Aihe, the talisman of Gone by Lunchtime, is somewhere around. Have we got any audio of that, Te Aihe? Can you chuck that on? This is from 2023.
Okay, look, before we wind things up, we're, just a few months away from an election. How do you guys see it panning out? What can we see playing out in the months and years ahead?
Look, I know that me and Ben have really taken the mickey out of Winston over the course of this election. But
Yeah.
I think in reality, we are likely to see a big surge for New Zealand First, just ahead of the election, and I dare say that he will be right there negotiating a coalition deal with the next government. I think that probably David Seymour will be in there too, and will be negotiating very hard for the Treaty Principles Bill, even though people think that he won't. And I think if that happens, Te Pāti Māori will use the debating chamber as a bit of a platform, and they will be guys.
You don't think that Luxon would stop that bill in its tracks in any negotiation scenario then?
Yeah, look, I think that we can expect, very tough negotiations. Even, at this stage out, it looks like that, some sort of three-way coalition might be more likely to come out.
I've never seen before.
Which, totally unprecedented.
Yeah.
And look, that'll take some time. Could be a long negotiation. You might have to split some of the positions. You might have to share the deputy prime minister. Probably hand over halfway, something like that.
Okay, right. Well, we're always innovating. And I mean, to my mind, clearly we've got Luxon coming in as prime minister. I think he will struggle in terms of the preferred prime minister numbers. I think he will struggle in terms of presenting himself as a political leader rather than a CEO leader. I think we'll struggle with jargon. But I think what he has beside him is also a special gift that John Key had in a way, and I think maybe it might not be towards the end of the term. Something will happen like Taylor Swift gets married. And he invites Taylor Swift and her fiancé, American football playing fiancé, to New Zealand. They have the wedding in his backyard, and that transforms the perception of him in New Zealand, and he's from there many terms.
Wow.
Governs for tens of terms from there on.
Well, I mean, plenty of water under the bridge between now, mid-2023,
Yes.
and the end. So
Yes.
we'll see.
Okay.
Seems unlikely.
Amazing.
Incredible stuff.
Listening.
Mata ki te as.
Wow. Amazing to listen back to that for the first time in 2 years is quite startling. But all we are is just a few pundits and podcasters and reckon havers. Let's move on to, because we are at a literary festival, books festival, we'll chuck in a little book element at the top. If you were going to write a novel or commission a novel about the term so far, we've now had 21 months of the current government, what would you call it, and what would the genre be? Who wants to go first? You go first, Annabelle.
I would call it the Time Traveller's Treaty, and it's about a plucky electrical engineer who travels back in time to renegotiate a free market friendly treaty with a group of natives who are desperate to cede sovereignty to a lady in England that they haven't met.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And it's like science fiction / historical fiction.
Nice, that's very popular, I think, at the moment. Yeah, I can see that. Ben?
I think it would be an allegorical novel. It would be called Picnic at Big Rock. And it would be about 3 children who go to have a nice picnic away, but there are seething undercurrents of resentment and difficulty. And I mean, I can't tell you the ending. I want to sell, but
Okay, very good.
it's a murder mystery. But the book that I will be writing at the end of this government, whenever that happens, I already have a pitch in to help Christopher Luxon write his business book. For his leadership and strategy book. It's going to be called Playing the Cards You're Dealt, Getting Your Aces in Their Places, and a Couple of Knaves! ! The exclamation mark is important if you know anything about publishing right now.
Amazing. Ben and Annabelle will be signing those books outside afterwards. My contribution is a novelisation of the beloved Roger Hall play Middle Age Spread, but turned into a dystopian novel as the population descends into a battle to find affordable butter and go with the course of...
Right in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
I love it.
So look, here we are. How long to go until the next election? Like 14 months or something, probably. Something like that. We don't really do one-term governments in New Zealand, and there's never been a one-term national government. And yet, if the polling is to be believed, it's pretty much neck and neck. When you look at what is the re-election strategy for the National Party, I look at it and it seems as though there are three things. One, the economy turns the corner, things start picking up, as in some ways there has been forecast. Two, Labour, which has managed to kind of cheat political gravity by not self-immolating over this term, does destroy itself over capital gains tax. I think Hipkins will go maybe back to was it Lithuania, where he announced that he was not doing capital gains tax to announce back on. Anyway, that and then the general argument, Annabelle, will be inevitably your circus, your coalition circus is circusier than our circus. Is that it? Is that the plan?
It's a tough argument. I think it's sort of all of the above, and also fingers crossed, toes crossed, say a prayer, potentially roll a leader. But I think what they have in their favour is that at the moment you don't see a lot happening on the Labour side of the ticket in terms of aspirational ideas or policies that people can start to cling on to. And I guess, you know, with how well things are doing for rural New Zealand, you know, butter prices, dairy prices, all of that, that's something that they can lean into, although that is starting to track down now. So much of it is beyond their control because it's, you know, Trump's world and we're just living in it, and you don't know from day to day what might happen.
Yeah, and that Trump element, which is sort of so it's jeopardy, right? And you can, but Luxon did promise at the start of the year, this was the year of growth. We talked about this before on the podcast, kind of a slight echo of Jacinda Ardern's year of delivery. Even if it wasn't our fault, there's a volatile actor in the White House. That still doesn't matter, does it, Ben? I mean, that's what they've promised, and that's what needs to be delivered.
I think it's important to note that the government's been let down by a lot of people. First of all, I think they were relying on economic forecasts and projections that showed that the recovery would be more underway by this period in the term. At that point, they could sort of point to the longer-term structural things that they're doing that will improve productivity over time. If the RMA reforms work out, if the fast-track things get shovels in the ground, regulatory trimming. So I think they could feel hard done by the fact that those projections haven't come to pass. As Nicola Willis noted, talking about the latest sort of economic stats, the doom merchants, there's a lot of people who are talking down the economy, who are saying that, the recovery is never coming, and I think they're letting the government down. So, I think between the people who predict that the economy will get better and the people that predict the economy will get worse, the government is being let down on all sides.
You do look at the headlines coming through. I mean, just this morning we had the Retirement Commissioner Jane Wrightson talking about the impact of the cost of living crisis on the elderly and how, acutely that's being felt. More broadly, we've had the Ipsos poll, which is the one that measures the issues that matter to people and then the parties they think are best equipped to deal with that. It will have been a bit of a cold awakening for some in the National Party strategy machine that Labour was judged better equipped to deal with the cost of living. Are there any other things, do you think, that come into the mix, Annabelle, in terms of the fortunes of the government? You had a story, just a little scoop this week about some reforms that are being considered in the public sector. I'm going to talk briefly about that and whether or not you think that feeds through into a broader kind of mood in the electorate.
So the story was that there's going to be a massive restructure of demographic focused government departments such as Ministry for Women's Affairs, Ministry for Pacific People, Ministry for Disabled People, and a proposal has yet to be put forward, but one is being developed. I think it shows that the government is still distracted with issues that the majority of New Zealanders are not that concerned by. And in terms of something like the Ministry of Women's Affairs, I mean, allegedly, I'm not sure if this is true, but we've seen some numbers that says that perhaps up to 50% of the population are actually women. Don't quote me on that. But when women are underemployed, when they're not experiencing pay equity, when they're experiencing discrimination, when they're not represented in boardrooms across the country, that affects everyone. Same with disabled people. When disabled people are being shut out of the workplace, that impacts all of us. Same with Pacifica people. So I think it's a somewhat short-sighted approach to those ministries because the work they do has an impact in a positive way for all New Zealanders, but also it's not what most people are thinking about at the moment. When we talk about this is the year of growth, yes, it's the year of growth in terms of mortgagee sales, in terms of liquidations, up from 1,800 in 2023 to 2,500 now. Unemployment, all of those things, that's where we are seeing growth. And I think that's what most New Zealanders are concerned about. Groceries. People are spending extraordinary amounts on groceries now. What was Labour's solution? The Grocery Commissioner. What impact has that had? Not a lot. So I think politicians across the board are not focusing on the issues that matter most to New Zealanders, and that's symptomatic of it.
I'm interested in your thoughts on that story, Ben, but also the broader point that Annabelle makes, which is it's a bit like that, that maxim that you can have a whole lot of different problems in your life, and then you have a health problem and you have one problem, like a serious. And cost of living is a bit like that, isn't it? Everything else sort of feels somehow peripheral when it's right in front of you, those challenges.
Yeah, I think that's right. Although I think in an economy where people feel like they're not getting ahead, that is where you start getting othering of other groups, whether it's immigrants, whether it's Māori, and so it creates more fertile soil for, I think, a lot of other distractions, basically. On the sort of rationalisation, I guess, that's been proposed, I've got a point, a counterpoint, and a counterpoint. So
Settle in.
The point, which is just more of an introduction to explain my position here, so that no one can get mad at me, which is that I'm an ally. I'm a son of a woman. I'm the partner to a lady. And I am sorry for being a man. But even so, there may be an argument that the Ministry of Women's Affairs doesn't do much. And
Ben?
Look, this hasn't been quantitatively proven, but when this was a policy during the election campaign, I sort of thought, no, that can't be right. They do a lot of good work, so I set about to find it. And during the COVID years, their big output, as seen on their website, on their proactively released papers, and their annual report, was one cabinet paper that they did for cabinet, which sort of kind of collected together impacts on women of the pandemic from across government, which I think most people would probably have just called a briefing paper. And that was sort of, but then the counterpoint to that is that this is small fry stuff. I don't know what total budget is, I think it's about 10 million a year or something. And Pacific People's is down to about 10 or 15 or something like that. You know, this is marginal stuff either way in terms of, you know, you're not going to get huge efficiency gains from government or much better outcomes. You're not going to the world isn't going to end if you make them, what they call them, departmental agencies, you know, sort of within larger ministries. You know, so someone will be doing the work, which is very, very necessary work right now, for instance, of trying to get more women onto government boards, because I don't know if anyone read a guy called Robert McCulloch, who's a University of Auckland economist who is perpetually beefing with the government about what he calls the chumocracy of the sort of closed sort of old boys network of advisors. And he was talking about the need to get more talent into and new faces into a lot of these public entities. And, you know, he's right, and this has been a perpetual problem in New Zealand as a small society. As Annabelle said, you know, a lot of evidence that half of people are women. And so,
not confirmed
and they tend to be and it tends to be underrepresented. And so, you know, wherever you can get new talent from, you want to. So, you know, Treasury should be doing that already, irrespective of the Ministry of Women's Affairs, you know, efforts. But yeah, I tend to think it's kind of a distraction if the government kind of if and when they want to make a big deal out of it, and it's
I think you could say that they're small ministries that punch above their weight, and they play a critical role in making sure that the people they represent, like our disabled whānau, have a voice at a decision-making level. I mean, the other thing too is it's just that, dare I say it, hypocrisy of, on one hand, we have a government that's very interested in defining in law what a woman is and deciding who can come into bathrooms and who can't, and who can play sports and who can't, but wants to potentially close down the Ministry of Women's Affairs.
Yeah. Very impressed by both of your grasp of demographic data a moment ago. I've done some data crunching too on the next bit I want to move on to, which is those two support parties in this novel three-part coalition. When you look back through the various governments that New Zealand First has been involved in, either as a full coalition partner or as a support partner, and then their result in the election versus their result at the point we're at now, like roughly about 14 months out from an election. In 1996, they hit 13.4%, incredibly, and then with an election just over a year away, they were on 1.8%. In 2005, 5.7% in the election. A couple of years later, at this point, 2.9%. 2017, 7.2% in the election, and then 3.3% with a year to go before the next election. 2023, New Zealand First, 6.1%, and now, in the latest polling, 9%. I mean, they've defied, that has been the big challenge of MMP for support partners. And so they'll be thrilled. I mean...
defying both the laws of gravity and the laws of time.
Right.
All in one term.
Yeah. But it's a remarkable thing, isn't it? And so, while in a sense, the struggles that Luxon is having, the other side of that coin is that both ACT, talking about ACT, New Zealand First and ACT are both sitting reasonably pretty. The conversation is not, we haven't heard the word threshold, which is a big, and unless things sort of drop quite dramatically, we won't in the lead up to the election. Where does that leave us?
I mean, this is obviously what me and Ben predicted in that
That's true.
clip
Yeah,
that
that's
you
true.
heard earlier, so this comes as no surprise to us.
No.
But I mean...
That's right. If Winston Peters is listening to this, I've always been behind you. A lot of people doubted.
Yeah. Yeah.
But never you. You never wavered.
Not once.
Not one time.
Don't Google that.
I think this is a parliament that's not, a government that's not quite like any other government in terms of having a very inexperienced Prime Minister coalesced with two incredibly, one very experienced and one very, very wily leader. And so what we're seeing is really out of the ordinary and possibly would only happen because of that particular circumstance.
Yeah, it's look. Sorry if you're a subscriber to the Post, because I'm just going to repeat something from my column today. When New Zealand First has really kind of pulled off a trick that it hasn't managed in its previous 3 iterations, sort of in or around government, which is managing to be the sort of outsiders in the opposition and a kind of funnel for people who are dissatisfied with the government, even while it is in government and even while Winston Peters himself is the Deputy Prime Minister. There was some really fascinating polling that the Taxpayer Union Curia poll did. I don't know if it was released publicly, but some guy tweeted a screenshot, which was very useful. And in August, they asked, alongside their traditional questions, how happy, whether you rated the government doing well or poorly or neutral or don't know, on growing the economy, growing jobs, cutting cost of living. And on growing the economy, something like 70% of national vote, they broke it down by party, 70% of national voters said, yep, government's doing a great job. 74% of ACT voters said, yep, government's doing a great job. 40% of New Zealand First voters. So half of New Zealand First voters don't even think the government's doing that great a job. And I think he's managed a kind of shift where previously, because as you can see from where that support plummets in government, previously I think his supporters have seen him as being trapped when he gets into government. And now I think they believe that the government is trapped in there with New Zealand First.
Yeah, but and pretty smart in retrospect for him to have said, "I'll be the Deputy Prime Minister for the first half," because he is a little bit more off the chain for what might happen in the lead up. What about?
And ACT have managed to do some things differently, as distinct from their last time in Parliament. Nobody's been caught using a dead baby's identity to get a false passport. That's an important structural change within the party. They haven't there hasn't been a coup against their deputy leader. Their leader didn't build a reputation as a perk buster and then take perks. So some improvements there as well.
Right. And I mean to come back to the point, and similarly, National has not had the good fortune that many leading parties of government have in recent times, whereas the opposition benches are in meltdown, and they can just, in a way, it's just a morale boost to be able to be to go to point and jeer at the other side and make jokes about the coup that's imminent. But then maybe that's because Labor hasn't really done very much at all. Do you think, does this imminent, we're going to get before the end of the year announcement on wealth tax or capital gains tax, is it the best time to launch it, given that people, aren't making any capital gains at the moment anyway, given that there are conversations about a productive economy and the money channeling into the wrong places? Is it the perfect time, a bit of time out, or is it just going to be another, albatross for them?
I think it is the perfect time because I think, the whole small target thing and then waiting until the last minute and launching it has almost become a target in itself, because now voters are aware that that's what political parties do, is they keep stuff quiet and try to launch, so that people are now like, okay, where's the policy? Talk about something. So I think that actually a better strategy would be to launch it now, let the media rip it all to shreds and bang on about it over and over and over, and then by the time the election comes along, it's kind of run out of steam. And the news cycle churns so quickly now that I don't think that it would hang around in a way like it used to. So I think it is a good time. I also think Labor missed a beat this week when Chris Bishop said that it was time to consciously uncouple from the idea that super expensive housing makes us a rich nation. And that's something that Labor could have really seized on. And obviously, while acknowledging that there are people who are mortgaged up to the eyeballs and you don't want them to, to end up in negative equity, Labor could have taken a more nuanced approach to how they discuss that issue and used it to begin a bipartisan conversation about how we begin to tackle that issue of housing unaffordability and not investing in, productive industries, and they didn't, and I think it was a shame.
It was an interesting moment, wasn't it, Ben, when Bishop, it wasn't things that he hasn't said before, but it turns up on Morning Report on Radio New Zealand and just says outright, yep, house prices need to go down, that's the thing. Also, it said Mount Eden needs to have stories, and you could sort of feel some members of the National Party campaign team. I mean, he's the campaign chair, so he can say what he likes. But one of the reasons, well, people, some of Bishop's comments on the state housing and homelessness stuff are a bit more amorphous, let's say. On that, as people respond to someone who's got a sense of conviction about an issue, which there is relatively little in coming out of the leadership of the National Party more broadly.
And that's always been the way with housing, right? And we saw that. Simon Wilson and Chris Keel in the Herald wrote about John Key speaking to the launch on that Auckland report, where Key said, the only thing that's wrong with the economy is house prices are going down, not up. Just need to take 100 basis points off the interest rate, and people will feel rich because they see their house going up, and then they'll start getting renovations and putting everything on the card, and then the economy's humming, which in truth is what most of our politicians have been counting on for the last 20 years. And it's totally unsustainable because you're basically whacking debt onto houses that safe in the knowledge that it's going to be paid off by a first home buyer family with a little kid on the way in their mid-20s who are going to give you $2.3 million for your home, right? And so, I mean, there's this... And having Key say it out loud, because previously governments have said, oh no, we just want sustained moderate housing price increases, and actually we want wages to increase, but that's all essentially fake. Most of them want this wealth effect to and increased immigration to make it look as if people, as if we're getting wealthier as a country. And I think it takes an immense amount of courage for Bish to actually say this, and he's stuck with it for over a year now in government. I've never heard another minister say it. And the other thing is, it's not as if these Mount Eden residents are actually going to suffer in any way, because if you bring down the average price of houses by building 6-storey apartment blocks, well, of course the average price comes down because there's a lot more 1- and 2-bedroom dwellings on the market, and the value of your section doubles because you can now put apartments on it. So when you finally want to retire and go and live in Hawke's Bay or Nelson or you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Look how quiet our audience is. I
was just thinking.
It's so tapu when we talk about housing prices. Everyone's
is it that, or is it like these people who come from Auckland, they're talking about Mount Eden? It's thanks, guys.
It's like Fendleton. Is it? I don't.
Let's crack on, because it's a bit to get to. I want to see how this pub quiz goes. There's a by-election on at the moment in Auckland. In Tamaki Makaurau. What is that going to tell us? It's two candidates that are really in it. Orini Kaipara from... What's that?
We don't care about
Rude!
I'm just going to use it as a portal to discuss the broader political situation. To put to you...
Now I'm a little worried to ask a Christchurch audience if you care about Māori.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. No, yes. Gee, wow. Ben will be available after the session for any manner of discussion.
These
on
are
a national...
These are my treaty partners down here.
Thank you. Yeah, there we go. What will the Tamaki Makaurau election tell us about politics?
Well, what I was going to say is that I'm not sure if it will tell us very much, because I'm not sure that the voter turnout will be very high.
Yeah.
I think that what you'll probably get is people who are used to voting, habitual voters, confident voters, given that it's a very young electorate. I think mid-20s is the median age, and I'm not sure that there'll be a huge turnout, therefore you can't really read too much into it. But I think in the next election, it's a very open race. And this one will be a very close run thing too, I think.
Is there some, do you think, Ben, in a way that because one of the arguments that the existing coalition will be looking to make is that Labour and Te Pāti Māori aren't capable of working together, that wouldn't hold, that at a minimum it's to the advantage of those two players that they don't appear to be ripping shreds off each other.
I mean, it probably would be to their advantage, but I think there's quite a lot of I think Peony Henare is definitely trying to sort of stay above the fray. Orini Kaupara doesn't appear to be the best prepared candidate, and has said a few things about Labour's record that I think Peony has taken exception to and had to correct. So I don't know that it's going too well as a sort of team building exercise. I think there's something about by-elections. They're a little cruel in the sense that you get two electorate candidates who, and who are running for an electorate seat, and they're basically subject to the same amount of publicity and number of live debates and media scrutiny as the two leaders of the major parties during a general election in terms of head-to-head debates and things like that. So, I think the general impact will be pretty limited.
A quick word before we get to the pub quiz that everyone's very excited about. A quick word on the Greens, who we haven't touched on yet. You look at the polling numbers, they seem to be, it's almost, no matter how kind of the upheaval in the Green Party or the policy announcement of the Green Party, they seem to be consistently in a band of about 10 to 12%. Is that just sort of locked in at the moment, do you think, for the Greens?
It appears to be, yeah, it does. And Chloe seems to have a very strong hold in Tamaki in the Auckland Central seat. Doesn't look like, she's at any imminent risk there. So yeah, they seem to withstand all scandal. And I guess that's because they kind of do the mahi. They're very good at getting their policies up. They talk to a broad range of issues. And they represent a pretty diverse range of New Zealanders.
Are they getting cut through though, do you think, Ben?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, they're steady at those high numbers, and what's always been the case for the Greens is that they poll best when Labour are polling down. So, again, without wanting to be like the Treasury forecasters who have let down the government, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Greens will still be polling pretty strongly at the election. Because, remember, we're talking about, Labour are doing surprisingly well. It's like they're at, 30%, 31%. We're at sort of levels of historic underperformance by the big parties. A lot of polls, they're under 65 in their combined vote, which is really crazy.
I mean, and given that it's remarkable when we were back here in 2023 correctly predicting the future, it would have been hard to imagine that there was that the two Chris's would be leading the two parties, but that at the moment seems to be at least reasonably likely. We asked a handful of politicians to pose questions to us and you in the style of a pub quiz, as prompts and just kind of to have a bunch of special guests. And the first, hopefully, that we're able to give to you is the darling of the New Zealand literary scene, the Todd Stevenson, MP from the ACT Party, who ran into a little bit of trouble when he was asked by Newsroom to name a book. I think that was
to name his favourite New Zealand book.
New Zealand book he read. But good on him for taking part. And this is his question.
Hi, Toby, Annabelle and Ben. Todd from ACT here, and I've got a quiz question for you. Which former MP had their eyes featured in the signage of a brothel? There's a hint in my location.
Okay. That's the statue of Robbie Burns behind him, I think, by the way.
What was the question? Which MP had a...
Which was it?
Which ACT MP had their eyes on a billboard opposite there?
For a brothel.
Former
For a
ACT MP.
brothel?
For a brothel.
Yeah. So during that term, Rodney Hyde got into trouble for endorsing a dentist in Epsom.
Okay.
So I think it's along the same lines as that, right?
Ish?
No. No, the answer is Hilary Calvert.
Oh, that's the answer.
The Dunedin-based acting P.
Yeah.
And fierce opponent of the foreshore and seabed repeal. She was actually a very authentic politician. She had come in after, I think, David Garrett had to resign because of the aforementioned dead baby sort of situation, and I think she was voting on a national party. She was speaking on a national party bill that ACT had signed up to support as part of their coalition agreement, and she stood up and said, ACT believes in freedom and property rights, and we don't, and therefore this bill is like anathema to everything we believe in, but we will be supporting it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Also, no friend of the caged chicken. She said when they were pushing that legislation through for free-range eggs that the ACT cares about people, not silly chickens. So.
Who would have thought we'd have so much Hilary Calvert chat in our podcast at this point? Could we have the next one, please, which probably needs no introduction?
Kia ora, folks. Shane Jones here. Here is a question for trivia purposes. What is the proper name of Freddy, that irritating frog in the Coromandel that has raised my ire related to mining? So what's Freddy the Frog's proper name there in Coromandel? Sadly, Captain Cooker pigs are likely to waste him before bulldozers do, but that's another matter.
Wow. Do you know what the proper name of Freddy the Frog, who has become the avatar for all the things that annoy Shane Jones, like biodiversity and the environment?
What are we talking? Is it like the Latin name?
No, it's not the genus thing,
poraka,
but like just the sort of more the
like the spotted green,
something like that. Could be something
frog.
like that.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say Frederick, but that's not.
That's yeah.
I don't. The thing is, okay. So one thing about New Zealand First is that they announce a lot of their sort of preferred policy as members' bills that they're going to put in as private that they're going to put into the ballot and see if they try their luck that way.
Yeah.
And they actually announce so many. And they have so few MPs who are not ministers and thus able to introduce private members' bills.
Yeah.
But every time they introduce a new one, they have to take out one of the ones they already have in the ballot. So, if you wanted gender testing at bathroom doors, I think that's gone because they needed to make room for the one that you can't change Aotearoa's name. No, you can't change New Zealand's name to Aotearoa with referendum, something like that. Right?
Yeah.
So,
what's your point?
Well, my point is they actually need to they need to double up. They need to be more efficient with their private members' bills. So, they need to have one that's sort of, an
omnibus bill.
Yeah, one about, the New Zealand coat of arms, and you sort of say the woman on the New Zealand coat of arms, her name is Zealandia, and she is a woman. That's in the law. And, because I was just thinking, isn't it like, didn't mutant frogs, like frog mutations because of pollution, like they started changing sex in America?
Okay, all right, okay.
Fertile ground
See where
for
you're
some
going
double
here.
duty New Zealand First
together.
legislation.
Okay. Does anybody know the name of the frog? Archie's frog, that's it.
Wait, Archie's?
Archer's frog?
Archer's frog.
Is that right? Yeah.
Is Archer a guy?
Archie's frog I've got here, is that right? One of 3 remaining species of native frog, and they're only terrestrial frog found on mainland New Zealand. Found this on the Department of Conservation site, which should be shut down as part of that bill as well.
Kia kaha Archie's frog.
So should we go for another one from Christchurch? We've got a Christchurch-based MP.
Hey, it's Kahukata from the Greens here. My question is, Christchurch is often referred to as the Garden City. What other nickname has it held since the early 20th century?
Another nickname for Christchurch, dating from the early part of the 20th century. Question asked by a Green MP.
I've got nothing.
Anybody?
I have nothing.
Cyclopolis. In the early 20th century, Christchurch, with its wide, flat streets, was nicknamed Cyclopolis because so many people in the city rode by.
I literally never heard that.
Yeah,
I love that.
so.
Cyclopolis.
Cyclopolis.
It sounds like a Greek monster.
Yeah, it sounds it's quite scary.
Yeah. Oh, I actually had a joke. I was gonna. So I was gonna start off by saying I've come in with a bit of a cold, and I was worried that when we went to do the show in Christchurch, it would be a bit flat.
Oh, nice. Yes. It was good. You guys are a tough audience, man. Sheesh.
It's always nothing better than setting it up by going, I've got a joke.
Yeah.
Well,
you've got to get rid of people prepared, because otherwise afterwards you have to say, please laugh.
The next one is from James Meagher, Minister of the Crown, MP for Rangitata, and I think he is the President of the South Island. Is that correct?
Hi there, Spin-Off crew. It's James Meagher here, MP for Rangitata. Now, Ben Thomas once worryingly described me as Parliament's Luigi Mangione. Toby Manhire has written that Rangitata is the Italy of the mainland. But what Italian-adjacent slogan is the unofficial slogan for South Canterbury?
No.
It's a good province.
I feel like they're making this stuff up.
Let's play these Auckland wankers.
Yeah.
Let's just play them. He's actually recorded the answer, hasn't he, I hear?
The answer, of course, is the Riviera of the South. If you don't like that, you go for a swim here at Sea Bay, our local community pool.
That's a TikTok-ready politician.
Yeah.
There's a jump cut there. And finally, a question from the Mayor.
Hi, Mayor Phil Major here. The question is, what is the best city in New Zealand and why is it Christchurch?
Cute. That's a good mayor. That's cute. Love
What's
that.
the answer?
Ōtautahi.
Yeah, nice. It does seem in very good form, Christchurch, my impression is that I know a lot of people moving to Christchurch, and people who have moved here, several, telling all their friends to move here too.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to backpedal on my earlier unpopular questions your city by saying, I think it probably is Christchurch right now. It's certainly the city on the rise. It's more affordable housing than elsewhere. I think that the relationship between local government and Ngāi Tahu is fantastic, and I think especially post rebuild, they've sort of managed to integrate the iwi into the city. I think probably better than anywhere else in the country, and then if I was like kind of doing a neg or something at the end, I might say,
why?
And
you were just about salvaged.
No. I'll say it positively.
I've got a joke.
The city does look great. I'm always sort of pleasantly surprised to remember just walking alongside the banks of the Avon, and also functioning light rail going outside.
Yes, setting the bar high for infrastructure there. Should say other mayoral candidates are available. Sarah Templeton, I think, is in the race and has a decent chance. Very briefly, before we go to audience questions on the local elections, has anything in local body races around the country set your heart racing, generated even mild interest or signs of life?
Dare I speak again of another issue in the North Island, and it's triggering, but I am fascinated to see what happens with the Kaipara District Council elections. You guys might have heard what happened up there. They were the only council to immediately abolish Māori seats when the legislation was passed, and one of the strongest opponents to that was a councillor called Pera Paniora, who had been elected in one of the Māori ward seats. She's standing this time in a general seat, the Wairoa seat, so I'll be watching that with interest. I also thought it was interesting to see Tanya Tapsell, Mayor of Rotorua, come out against Hobson's pledge using her image in some of her quotes. Interesting because she didn't initially support Māori wards, and I think, to be fair, she probably still doesn't, but she voted to put that to a referendum. So I think it speaks to how actually nuanced that issue is, and Hobson's pledge being quite a blunt instrument in terms of entering into these debates. So it was interesting to see her speak out about that.
What about you, Ben? Anything that's interested you? You were the campaign comms guy for Wayne Brown in the last election, mayor election in Auckland. You did so well that he appears not to be bothering to campaign at all this time around. Anything getting your heart racing?
Look, it hasn't really kicked off yet, but I have high hopes for Gore.
Is that with the child mayor?
Last time you'll remember Ben Bell, the child emperor, won power in Gore, and then was locked in a bitter struggle with the chief executive. And then it later transpired that Ben Bell's mother had used to work for the council and had her own sort of beef or something. And I don't know if I ever clarified the timelines on it, so I had this hazy impression that he was kind of born into a pit like Bane in Batman Returns and trained from birth to take out the Gore District Council organisation. And so I think he achieved that. So now we're in the kind of Dune 2, Dune 3, whatever kind of period of it. And I'm just excited to see what happens next. It's coming out sooner than the last instalment of Game of Thrones. So.
Good shout. Have we got any questions? If there's a couple of magnificent WORD Christchurch volunteers here with mics, if anyone got time for a couple of questions, if anyone wants to throw their hand in the air.
They can be trivia as well.
They can be trivia if you like, or denunciations of Ben,
One
if you wish.
at the far back.
Right up there. Kia ora.
Kia ora iho. Ben, question for you. Do you stand by your previous statements that local government should be abolished?
Oh, is that it? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. My previous, my current statements, I can guarantee future statements about it. It's, I mean, that's the kind of track it's been on, right? Under the previous Labour government, under this National New Zealand First Act government, more and more functions being taken away from it. You see, with local water done well, for instance, that was a concession to the political outrage about three waters. Okay, we won't forcibly merge you into these super entities. We'll let you figure it out on your own. Not like that. No, come on. Just constantly steering them away from these councils just falling into manholes with no covers or whatever, because they, in most cases, these councils can't manage it themselves, and so. I mean, that's just sort of the reality in terms of the infrastructure bill, in terms of just the challenges of getting the kind of, skills and expertise that you need to sort of oversee these organisations. I mean, there's 123 MPs, and you'd struggle to find, once you go down to the lowest, if you rank them all by sort of skill and knowledge, there's something like 1,000 local government elected members, right? So it's not like we're getting the best.
And about 2,000 people, like 2 candidates across the board for one post, which is slightly troubling. What else we got?
I'm the opposite, by the way. I feel like we need more local government. Like, I grew up on Waiheke Island, where we had the Waiheke Island County Council, and we had diggers and tractors and all of that stuff. And so when we got hit by Cyclone Bowler, within days we'd be back on our feet, because all of that infrastructure and the workforce to make it happen was in our community and close at hand. And I feel like all of these mergers and super cities, and now they're trying to do it in places like the Wairarapa, that's when local government becomes a problem, because it's too disconnected from the communities that it serves.
think I saw another one. Yeah.
Oh, I have a trivia question for you. Do any of you know the identities of the male MPs who stole Jenny Shipley's swimsuit from Parliament? No, true story. From the Parliament swimming pool women's changing room and paraded down the halls of Parliament wearing it.
Wearing it?
Whoa.
Wearing it.
Oh, no, but I really want to. Do you?
Yeah, Toby, you're doing a podcast on the 1990s national government, aren't you?
And I have not. I interviewed Jenny Shipley at length and did not know that. Ellie Mao will reveal this exclusively at her session, which is next in this room, I guess. Or now.
Look, I do know, but I can't tell you because I'm worried they'll sue me. I just wondered if you knew.
That is a great question. And, you know, I think back to that period when Jenny Shipley and Helen Clark were running against each other and the really kind of reductive, sexist commentary around both of them at the time, two incredibly astute, you know, impressive politicians, and it basically, you know, became about who cooks a roast and, you know, who's doing a TV dinner and all of that stuff. And I'd like to think that we've come quite a long way since then, but still not quite far enough.
More applause. Got time for, I reckon, one more? One more? Must be another one. Okay, one more here, and then we'll go out with a, we're up the back with keeping you moving, and then we'll have finish with another prediction for next time that we'll listen back to again. For the,
any of the leaders going to get rolled before the election, and who do you think they will be?
You guys know what I think about this. I think that there is a high likelihood that Christopher Luxon, if the polls continue on their current trajectory, could be challenged or could be encouraged to consider a career change, perhaps. But my idea is like Christopher Luxon and Chris Hipkins should form their own coalition and run, and their tagline could be "Only see Caesars tasting like these" for the nostalgia.
Wow.
Do you like that?
That's great. Ben, Jenny Shipley, since she's in the orbit, one of the challenges I think in terms of if they were to determine in the national caucus or that they needed a new leader, is, as we know from 1997, when Jim Bolger was rolled by Jenny Shipley, Winston Peters was incandescent about that, and it ultimately led to the collapse of the government. And so it's harder in a coalition system, where you would presumably have to get the blessing, or at least consult properly with both David Seymour and Winston Peters before you did that, or else you risk, pulling the carpet out.
Yeah, setting up an appointment to discuss your potential rolling of your leader
Yeah.
with Winston.
Yeah.
Instead of just want to run this past you.
Yeah.
This is a without prejudice conversation.
Yeah.
It's a Neil Quigley from the Reserve Bank rules. No written notes, not OIA-able. You'd have to say no. I mean, at this point, anything could happen. Simon Bridges, bless his soul, he was rolled because National fell under 40%. Imagine, what days they were. And
I think strictly he was rolled because there was a lot of mean comments on a Facebook thread.
But I think, people who were intimately involved in that rolling, Nicola Willis, Chris Bishop, they will probably remember what happened afterwards in the ensuing 7 weeks, and the 2 changes of leader subsequently. The transaction costs can be very high, and so assuming that National and Labour both stay above 30, the soft bigotry of the soft bigotry of low expectations or whatever, but. It's almost as if they don't want to go out on a limb on policies. They don't want to go out on a limb on rolling them. everyone's just sort of hunkering down and hoping that they turn out to be the government in a year and a half.
All right, let's wrap it up with a piping hot take or a bold and foolhardy prediction. I'll go first because it kind of carries on from that excellent question. And my hot take is that if the day were to come where Chris Luxon is to be rolled, the Grim Reaper, the person who would make that happen or trigger it to happen, is Mike Hosking. If Mike Hosking is, I'm not even kidding, like if Mike Hosking has had enough and he's like, I'm not taking this crap anymore, I'm going to nail you, that I think that would be game over.
Yeah, I agree. Mike the Decider Hosking,
One of the most powerful people
his
in the,
fate is entirely in his hands.
What have you got, Annabelle?
My prediction is that I think we will likely see some churn in the Māori seats at the next general election.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's my take on it.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Sorry.
Ben Thomas, take us home.
Your one was actually really good. I'm pretty terrible at these because I just sort of, my whole job relies around sort of narrowing down to the most likely thing and just repeating it over and over again. So I think if there was a piping hot take, and it's not in no sense as a given, but I think there's a better than average chance that we have our first government led by a major party in the 20s after the election.
Okay, interesting. Okay,
That's
very
a good
good,
one.
very good. We're done. We've run over a little bit. Thank you for being a brilliant audience again. Terrifically engaged and smart. Thank you to the WORD team, who are fantastic hosts. Fantastic event. Thank you to Tiahi Butler, who is our true leader. And see you next time. Thank you.
The Spin-off Podcast Network.